The real news site, dailymail.com, releases a story on March 6th that Barack Obama's close confidant, Valerie Jarrett, moved into his Kalorama mansion, which it's probably really just a large house. I don't think you can really get an actual mansion in D.C., but it looks pretty nice. I wonder who's paying for it. Maybe it's Jeffrey Epstein. But anyways, Valerie Jarrett is a political operative for Barack Obama. Obama cannot use his West End office, a post-presidency perk, for political purposes. So he's hosting a kind of a political startup with Valerie Jarrett, and they're leading the Democrat Party to oppose Donald Trump. And they're going about it in fairly nasty means, of course. Barack Obama clearly has connections within the government. When the government switches over, you don't always have immediate leadership change, and not all of the people that make the government run are going to be Trump's confidants. Some of them will be Obama loyalists. For instance, who is leaking all this information about Trump calls to foreign governments, Trump's actions. Barack Obama is such a political whore that he can't fade away, build his library, get out of the public scene, let somebody else run the show. So he remains on the scene. Now, Trump has come out in one of his Twitter tirades that Barack Obama wiretapped the Trump Towers, which if this is true, it's remarkable that he won. If you think of all of the powers that were against him, the only power that was for Donald Trump was the power of the people, the regular people of America. Now, Trump kind of tongue-in-cheek anonymously sourced reports say that Obama wiretapped the Trump Tower, which I think is kind of a dig against the mainstream media, which always has anonymous reports that say that, for instance, Trump hired hookers to urinate on Barack Obama's bed, and they ran with that through BuzzFeed. They ran with the hooker story, even though it could never be corroborated. John McCain was pushing it. Mainstream media organizations, unabashedly liberal organizations like BuzzFeed were pushing it. So all they had to say was, here, I got a dossier that has Trump doing some perverted things in a Russian hotel, and that's all it takes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trump came out with his own dossier that showed that Obama was some kind of a courtesy bottom at a Soho sex club, or that he's got a dominatrix, like the AG in the show Billions. I mean, the lies get weirder. The truth is even more unusual. If you read some of those Podesta emails, it just gets so bizarre, with spirit cooking and connections to these people like Jeffrey Epstein. But let's talk about precedents and decorum. Every U.S. president, after they leave office, they fade away, they go build a library, they work on a foundation. Sometimes the foundation helps buy uranium for the Russians, helps procure uranium for the Russians, but usually it's some kind of harmless thing like the Bushes did, or Jimmy Carter, except Jimmy Carter kind of pops up now and then, visits Cuba and kind of longs for the spotlight. But they're supposed to go away. That's why we have term limits. That's why that's why we voted for term limits after we suffered through 4 terms of FDR. We're like, okay, well, we need, this is not a dictatorship. We actually need the guy to leave so we can get some fresh ideas in here. And by the time the president is on their 3rd term, they've already developed a very powerful political machine. So Trump has pledged to destroy Obama's legacy. And for some reason, the Republicans, who now have the Congress and the Senate, they don't have the testicular fortitude to actually go through with Trump's agenda. They're behind the scenes. They are fighting him. Some are quite obviously fighting him, like John McCain. Other Republicans who are trying to see which way the wind is blowing have decided to throw Jeff Sessions under the bus by pressuring him to recuse himself from the investigation into Russian meddling in the election. Russians had no way to actually affect voting machines, anything like that. Russians are not being accused of doing that. What the argument here is, if it is even stated, is that Russians hacked into emails by sick freaks like Podesta and released some of the weird crap that they do, and that's kind of the argument, is that, well, the election was just a little bit more transparent on the Democrat side. Well, whatever happened to being above reproach? If you're running for the presidency of the United States, what happened to just being a moral, upstanding person? What happened to not actually selling our enemies weapon supplies? What happened to just saying, if you're from a country that mutilates women and kills gays, maybe we won't have dealings with you? But of course, Hillary Clinton saw herself as some kind of an overlord, some kind of person that is way, way above the norm. I mean, shake hands with the normal person. It's got to kill her. I mean, just to go down there and just interact with these gross Americans, it's just got to kill her. I mean, they're just not. That's who she was. That's who she was a long time ago, and she's not there anymore. She was way above these people. And then you got Trump, who is he's palling around with the masses. Now, I think that Sessions recusing himself was the wrong move, because Americans, all of us, I mean, maybe not myself, just because I study the news a lot and I study the politics a lot. But even sometimes if I'm not paying attention, we get like headlines that come through Yahoo News or I don't know, whatever the older people are using, like AOL News or the Facebook feed, which Zuckerberg is actively trying to influence with his fact checking. I haven't heard much about where that's going, but Zuckerberg is political, and he came up from Harvard, which is kind of where seems like half the people that are important come from the Ivy League, and then half of those people come from Harvard. But he came from Harvard. He kind of built his own company, but now he is the elite. I mean, he's worth $50 billion. He wants his company to be the most important thing in the world, basically. So I wouldn't put it past him to try to control what we think. But the internet is too large for that. We have free speech in this country, and I don't think they're going to succeed. The activists in the mainstream media are already pushing for a Donald Trump impeachment, or a Donald Trump, if not an impeachment, they just want to take away any forum that he has through any means possible. If you were to look at Obama's history, they get dirty. They don't mind they don't have any concern about moral turpitude. The fact that Obama doesn't mind how it looks that he's got his political operative staying with him, it means that he's probably going to come out. He's going to be on the news shows. He's going to be like the anti-president. He's going to be the leader of the opposition when it's supposed to be Pelosi or the head of the DNC or whatever. It will probably be Trump, or not Trump, Obama, undermining Trump's every move. And one of the risks that Trump brings to the establishment, that includes the Republicans as well as the Democrats, is that he is not in the club. He is not even remotely in the club. And you notice that he canceled the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I mean, you know how well that went last time. And the reason he just doesn't care. He's a wrecking ball. It appears that Sessions, it appears that calls for Sessions to resign because of alleged perjury are not, it doesn't appear like that's going to happen, because if you look at the actual, what they were actually asking him about, he was being asked about the dossier that has been turned out to be a fake dossier and it was so ludicrous that they didn't even release it right when they got it. It took BuzzFeed and then CNN to carry it after BuzzFeed got the ball rolling. The Russian thing is not going away, folks. Now this is Al Franken during the Sessions confirmations hearing for Attorney General. Al Franken just receives information about that dossier, which the whole thing was it was just total crap. I mean, it was made up to sell to mainstream media organizations. It includes just ridiculous and salacious findings about Donald Trump being in a hotel room in Moscow. I mean, they could have thrown Putin in there with him, and I mean, it was just ridiculous. Here is the soundbite.
CNN has just published a story, and I'm telling you this about a news story that's just been published. I'm not expecting you to know whether or not it's true or not, but CNN just published a story alleging that the intelligence community provided documents to the president-elect last week that included information that, quote, Russian operatives claimed to have compromising personal and financial information about Mr. Trump. These documents also allegedly stated, quote, there was a continuing exchange of information during the campaign between Trump's surrogates.
Now, you heard Al Franken, he was laughing there because, probably because some of the allegations are that they were disproven, but they were that Trump hired hookers, which if you talk to Trump, he doesn't have to pay for sex. I'm just saying. I mean, but anyways, he hired hookers to pee on his. I'm sure he could get 5 Trumpsters in Russia to pee on a bed without having to pay him. But they're saying that the dossier was saying that hookers peed on the bed, and Trump is a germaphobe. He had to get past all kind of hurdles just to shake hands with people during during the election. I'm sure he carries around Purell. I mean, urine all over the bed. I don't know if that would work for Trump, but that's why he's laughing.
And intermediaries for the Russian government. Now, again, I'm telling you this as it's coming out, so, But if it's true, it's obviously extremely serious. And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Very well.
Now there is an ambassador to Russia that pals around with all kind of senators. Pelosi seems to be best friends with Chuck Schumer. Schumer actually appears to be friends with Putin. They've been seen getting coffee and donuts together. I don't know if they were discussing hacking on the Republican Party. That remains to be seen. I do have a dossier. No, I don't really have a dossier, but I wish I had something as cool as a dossier that I could release. I think all you would have to do is get a creative team together and just type one up, and the Democrats would probably believe it. Trump tweeted a picture of Pelosi meeting Ambassador Kislyak. I'm sure this guy gets around. You know, all these ambassadors, they meet lots of people. So they were pressuring Sessions for having met with an ambassador. But I'll let you listen to the rest of the clip.
Divulging sensitive information, do you know about this or know what compromising personal and financial information the Russians claim to have?
Senator Franken, allegations get made about candidates all the time, and they've been made about President-elect Trump lots of times. Most of them, virtually all of them, have been proven to be exaggerated or untrue. I would just say to you that I have no information about this matter. I have not been in on the classified briefings, and I'm not a member of the Intelligence Committee. And
Totally
so I'm
fair.
just not able to give you any comment on it at this time.
Totally fair.
So there isn't, I don't believe that there are punishments for senators for asking questions based on unverified information. The controversy here is that Sessions said he had not met with the Russians. Now, Franken was clearly asking about a specific thing, which was this fake dossier. So he was being asked about a fake document. Sessions said he had not met Russians, and in the context, it's clear that he did not mean Russians with regard to the Trump campaign. And the mainstream media is grasping at straws, trying to find anything to take Trump's people apart. So if Trump has to defend his AG, he's got to defend his national security advisor, he's got to defend all these people. He's not going to be able to initiate his agenda, and at the same time, he looks ineffectual. Now,
Totally fair. Last week, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, claimed that the Russian government was not the source of the hacked emails WikiLeaks published during the campaign, that they published during the campaign. Now, Assange did not identify his source, nor did he say whether his source worked with or received information from the Russians. But again, American intelligence agencies have concluded the Russian government directed the hacking operation. Nonetheless, immediately following that interview, President-elect tweeted, quote, "Julian Assange said a 14-year-old could have hacked Podesta. Why was DNC so careless?" Also said Russians did not give him the info, exclamation point. Senator Sessions, does it concern you that our future commander-in-chief is so much more willing to accept what Julian Assange says instead of the conclusions of our intelligence agencies?
now I think it's become obvious here that the intelligence agency is split into a couple of different factions. One is the Obama loyalists, the Obama holdovers, and everybody else. So when Julian Assange says that the Russians didn't give him the information, I think it's fair to believe him because Julian Assange I don't think he has a particular agenda necessarily, except to be disruptive. So when he releases documents, he's trying to be disruptive. I don't see how you could say Assange is a pawn of Trump. When we were at war with Iraq, Assange supported the intelligence dumping of Chelsea, then Bradley Manning, which was extremely damaging to the Bush administration.
And why do you think President Trump finds Assange trustworthy?
Senator Franken, I'm not able to answer that. I've not talked to the president-elect about any of these issues, and it is often inaccurate what gets printed in the papers.
Well, back in 2010, back when WikiLeaks was publishing stolen American diplomatic cables and military secrets, you voiced concern about the Obama administration's response. You said that WikiLeaks publishing sensitive documents should be, quote, pursued with the greatest intensity. You said, quote, the president from on down should be crystal clear on this, and I haven't seen that. I mean, he comes out of the left, the anti-war left. They've always glorified people who leak sensitive documents. Now he's the commander-in-chief, so he's got a challenge. President-elect Trump, by contrast, said, quote, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Do you believe that by holding up Julian Assange, who traffics in leaked and stolen documents, often classified documents, as a legitimate source of information, that President-elect Trump is glorifying people who leak sensitive documents?
Well, I will say this, that if Assange participated in violating the American law, then he is a person subject to prosecution and condemnation.
Well, we know that in regard to what he did in 2010, and yet the president-elect said, WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks. Doesn't it seem like perhaps if you weren't sitting before us today as an Attorney General nominee, and if President Obama was publicly embracing Julian Assange, that perhaps you might take a more critical view?
As a member of the Senate, as you and I remain for hopefully not too much longer, depends on you and your colleagues, but I feel it's a lot easier to be vigorous and outspoken as you begin to think about the awesome responsibility of serving as an Attorney General with the possibility of having to handle certain cases. You need to be more cautious about what you say. So I think it's just not appropriate for me to be the person for you to seek political responses from.
Now, Trump saying that Obama wiretapped him has seemed to cause quite a ruckus in the mainstream media, who also has a propensity for anonymous sources. Take a listen. This is Mika Brzezinski on the Morning Joe.
Response in just a moment, but Harold, there's a lot of reporting I have behind the scenes that Reince Priebus is flailing, to say the least, at his job. I'm hearing that from Bob Acosta. Robert Acosta is coming on later to talk about all the different sources he has on a story that's similar. But I also don't understand.
Of course, she neglects to give us detail on these sources because they are anonymous sources that may or may not exist, and the information may or may not be correct.
And why the former head of Breitbart appears to be handing the president some fake news, and the president is just riffing on it wildly, with no sense that he is president of the United States, no respect for the office, and calling former president of the United States unbelievable names. When we're at a low point in American history, And I don't know how anybody can defend this president, even if it's their job. Like, you've got to have a job after this. You've got to look in the mirror after this. Sarah Huckabee, or whoever is going to speak out next, you have to look in the mirror and think about this country after this is over. You need to think of the end game here, because there is one at the rate we're going. Harold.
I agree with you. I think this, to everyone's point, this is an historic.
So Mika is clearly hysterical with regard to Trump's tweet, and I don't know if what he said was true, but it doesn't seem that crazy. I mean, if you've seen the Snowden movie, they can get into your microphones and your web address. I mean, Obama could be watching me doing this right now. But all he would have to do to listen to it is to subscribe to the podcast. So you don't need any fancy NSA technology for that. But if you've seen the Snowden movie, it is probably possible that somebody in the intelligence community was doing just a little bit of spying. I mean, if you had the ability at your fingertips. So when Trump says things in tweets, they're not always like word for word true, but there's usually some truth in what he does say. So it is dangerous to come out and say that this is crazy and blah, blah. And they always do that. For instance, when he tweeted out about how people were dancing on the roof in New York after the Twin Towers went down, there is video of actual celebrations after it happened, and then later on there's been pro Al-Qaeda demonstrations after the actual a terror attack, which which is crazy. But so there usually is some truth to these things. I don't have any anonymous sources to tell me that it is correct or not. But apparently Trump does. And Mika is just ready. She's just, she's ready just to let the president just resign and go with somebody who's been a Republican for 20 years and been a member of the establishment. But maybe what we need is a little bit of a bull in a china shop in the presidency. And just keep in mind that Hillary facilitated the selling of uranium to the Russians. Now, CNN has a spy cam, so CNN has a camera aimed at the window of the Oval Office. I don't know if you've seen this. Here's a clip of the report. Again, I'm using Daily Mail here. That is my source. It's not anonymous. It is the Daily Mail. http://www.dailymail.co.uk. And here's the report from CNN.
CNN that the president was frustrated and angry that Attorney General Jeff Sessions was forced to recuse himself from any investigation into the alleged Russian interference into the presidential election. In fact, Trump felt the recusal was hasty and overkill. That led to a fiery meeting in the Oval Office where there were, quote, a lot of expletives. In fact, we have video from outside the Oval Office which shows that animated conversation with Trump and his top aides. In fact, you can see Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, Reince Priebus, Sean Spicer, and Ivanka Trump in a discussion that appears to get heated at times. Now, we don't know exactly what was being discussed at this particular moment.
They've got Steve Bannon walking around the Oval Office talking. That's all they have. That whole thing. That's the evidence.
But we're told the president accused his staff of fumbling the situation with Sessions. And after that angry White House meeting, the president left for Florida, and it was from his Mar-a-Lago estate on Saturday morning that Trump tweeted out that explosive accusation that President Obama ordered the wiretapping of his phone and Trump Tower during the campaign. Now, that is a claim the White House has still yet to provide evidence for, and one that former President Barack Obama vehemently denies. But the administration's not backing down from Trump's claim. In fact, this morning, in a statement to CNN, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer confirms that White House counsel Donald McGahn is, quote, reviewing what options, if any, are available to us. That could include obtaining records from the Justice Department that would prove that a warrant was issued to conduct surveillance on Trump or his associates. Now, protocol has normally walled the Justice Department off from such a White House request.
Okay, so in this meeting they had Bannon, Reince Priebus, Jared Kushner, and Jared's wife, Ivanka. So, and they have a video of a window, and Steve Bannon is pointing. So he could be saying, wow, look at this bust of Winston Churchill. It looks really good right there. But apparently they got all of that from anonymous reports. So are they saying that Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, Reince Priebus leaked some of the information that they were discussing? I mean, the whole thing sounds fishy. I mean, if you're at CNN, I think you're basically just coming up with shit to make Trump look bad. It's just like the creative team at Mad Magazine just coming together with things that are more and more ridiculous. So it appears that the mainstream media, the Democrat Party, and the shadow government led by Barack Obama are all coalescing on this this line that Donald Trump had the Russians hack the election, which there is no evidence for. CNN has decided to use footage of people through a window. Does look like Steve Bannon. My take on it is that Steve Bannon is pointing out the bust of Winston Churchill. He does appear to be pointing. He could be angry. But how they got all of that from that video and anonymous sources who weren't in the room, I'm skeptical at best. But it seems like the mainstream media is just grabbing at straws and just trying to see if anything will stick on the president. So it will be interesting to see what happens. So I want to thank you guys for listening to Jeffrey Danger Radio. I'm Jeff Danger. I'd like to announce that we've added another person to the staff. That's MK Ultra. She is the head of female outreach. We've grown to 4 staff members here. So I just want to welcome MK Ultra to the team. Now, if you'd like to email me, my email address is jeffdangerradio@gmail.com. My YouTube channel is called Jeff Danger Radio. We have pertinent videos on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys very much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.